College football season is quickly approaching. Get ready for it with us, top 24 college fantasy football running backs on the way. All right, John, here we go. Top 24 college fantasy football running backs here, following up on our top 24 college fantasy football quarterbacks episode. Let's jump right into it here, John. Coming in at number 24 is Michael Wiley, the running back out of the University of Arizona. John, I think Michael Wiley is very underrated, flying under the radar for an improving Arizona offense. And I got to tell you, I soaked up the Michael Wiley shares all off season. Would you agree?
Absolutely, my friend. I'm a big believer in Michael Wiley. Part of it is Arizona's got a sneaky good offense. They put points on the board, almost 31 points per game. They're in the Pac 12. We know there's going to be high scoring contests in there. And what I loved about Michael Wiley last year was his ability to catch the football. He had 36 receptions on 46 targets, and he scored 3 times through the year. He had 771 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns on the ground. Matt, I think Michael Wiley is a great value. He's going off around pick 100 in CFF drafts, but I like the Arizona Wildcat running back a lot, my friend.
Absolutely. Definitely somebody that I'm targeting in just about every draft I'm in. And John, our next guy here coming in at number 23 is somebody who I've been targeting a lot in my Devy leagues, but the production absolutely carries forward. It matches the talent. In 2 weeks in a row, we're talking about the Kansas Jayhawks offense. It's running back Devin
I'm
Neal.
a big fan of Devin Neal, and I know some people are concerned that there's a split backfield. But Matt, rational coaching dictates Devin Neal is, in my opinion, I've watched a lot of the Jayhawks. He's the better back. I have him as a deep Devy sleeper at running back, but Lance Leopold's system can also have two backs, Matt. People think they can't, but I do believe they can. Last year, he had 1,090 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. As a true freshman, Matt, he had 707 and 8 touchdowns. He's also a pretty good receiver. In 2 seasons, he had 28 receptions, scored twice on the ground. What I like about him is his explosiveness, Matt. He's the guy who's going to get the 50-yard touchdown. Devin Neal, I have him on a ton of teams, Devy, Dynasty, and CFF. Go get him, everyone.
Yeah, you can't have too much
No.
Devin Neal. It's just he's a consistent producer, right? And again, Big 12 defenses, that's going to be pretty friendly here for CFF production week over week. All right, John, Jace McClellan, he had to wait 4 years to get to lead back status at the University of Alabama. He doesn't have to wait nearly as long to be discussed on this episode. He's coming in at number 22.
It took me a long time to come around on Jace McClellan. Part of it, he's been in that Alabama system. And if you know Nick Saban over the years, Matt, he's very loyal to upperclassmen. If you spend 3 or 4 years on the Crimson Tide and you do your job, is looking for, you're going to get an opportunity. So when you look at his previous years, you don't see a lot of stats. But I've been doing a lot of research over the winter. One, Saban wants to go back to more of a ground game. One, I think it's the roster. This is the first time I remember that I'm not impressed with the Alabama quarterback in years. Don't love their wide receivers, Matt. Well, what does that do? Saban goes back to his roots and he runs the football. McClellan was, I believe, a 5 or 4-star athlete. I can't remember now. But they're a high 4-star coming into Alabama. He's a good pass catcher. He's powerful runner. He can do what the Crimson Tide are looking for. He's an outside NFL draft prospect. He might have 1,400 yards if he hits his ceiling. I love McClellan this year for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, John. For my summer film review of Jason McClellan, I saw a reliable, consistent, productive runner. And for the Alabama offense this year that's heading into fall camp without knowing exactly who they're starting quarterback in, that's going to be pretty crucial for them. So let's go from the top of the country in terms of rankings to a much lower level here, but not, still a good offense over the last couple of years. We're going to go to Eastern Michigan here, and we're going to talk about running back Samson Evans.
Samson Evans is one of those players you may not know, but he was a 3-star recruit in high school. He was very good. He ended up going to the Iowa Hawkeyes, Matt, but he really couldn't get off the bench. So he ends up transferring to Eastern Michigan. Again, he's kind of stuck on the bench for Eastern Michigan. But all of a sudden, he explodes last year against Arizona State. And I remember, like, are you kidding me? Who is this guy? 250, 36 carries. He ended up being a waiver wire gemstone. And, man, he was unbelievable last year. Everything you're looking for in a running back. They play in the MAC. They have advantages against those defenses in that conference. Evans is a solid number 2 fantasy running back in college football.
Absolutely. And it's John, it could just be so helpful to have that group of 5 lead back guy, right? You don't necessarily need to worry about, is he going to get 12 carries this week? Is he going to get 20 carries this week, right? Now, their next guy on the list is very talented. He's very explosive, but he doesn't come with that same level of predictability, right? Next up here is going to be running back Donovan Edwards out of the University of Michigan.
If you want to invest in this Michigan running game and you don't want to pay the high freight, you basically have to pay a first or second round pick for Blake Corum. Donovan Edwards is a very nice player to get, Matt. He's everything that you are looking for. The only challenge is how many touches does he get every game. But what we did see when he had the opportunity last year, when Blake Corum was injured late in the season, he scored over 25 fantasy points 4 times. He is explosive. Yeah. He might be a better, actually, I'm going to say this. He's a better receiver than Corum in my book. I don't think he's as good between the tackles. What makes Blake Corum so interesting is he's awesome between the tackles. Donovan Edwards is better in space and more explosive. But if you want one of these young running backs, you want a running back on Michigan, Matt, he's coming off around pick 80. So what are you looking at? Round 6, and you're getting a piece of that explosive Wolverines ground game. Donovan Edwards, they can have 2 running backs be fantasy worthy at Michigan.
Coming in at number 19, John, I think one of the most under the radar transfers from this last portal cycle. It's Ray Davis, formerly of Vanderbilt, at Temple before that. Everywhere he's been, John, he's produced, and that's why he keeps moving up a level. He finds himself in a Kentucky offense that's been very, very friendly to the running back position. And I think his play style complements Devin Leary very well. Another transfer into Kentucky this offseason.
I think this is one of the no-brainers from a program standpoint. They lost Chris Rodriguez. He went to the NFL. And they gained 1,000-yard back at Vanderbilt. Ray Davis gained 1,042 yards for the Commodores. I would never put the Commodores up with one of the elite programs in the SEC. So the fact that the young man went out there and gained that much yardage for Vanderbilt is really impressive. Go all the way back to his true freshman year at Temple, 936 yards rushing. Then he got hurt, so you see a little dip in the numbers. But he worked himself back. Matt, what I like about him, he has 61 career receptions for 439 yards and 5 touchdowns. We know Kentucky is going to work the ground game. That's what they've done. I don't see them making any changes philosophically. They do have Devin Leary, who's a better thrower of the football, so they'll get more opportunities. But I think Raymond Davis is due. He's going to get about 270 carries or touches this year. Love him at his ADP right now.
Absolutely. All right, John, let's take a moment to go ahead and recap the players that we have already discussed. Coming in at number 24 is Michael Wiley, finding himself in a productive Arizona offense. The talented Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas, coming in at 23. At 22 is productive and reliable Alabama running back Jace McClellan. At 21 is Eastern Michigan Samson Evans. Lots of upside there. Number 20, Donovan Edwards with that pass catching upside out of the University of Michigan. And coming in at 19 is Ray Davis, surely set for another productive season for the Wildcats. John, before we move on to number 18, I am excited to share with our viewers here on YouTube first that we will be doing a rookie big board seasonal college fantasy football league. It's going to be set up so that it is an accessible league, whether you are a pro, have lots of years of experience, or just want to give it a shot for the first time. Me and John will both be manning rosters, which leaves 10 spots left open. If you want to get in on the league, leave a comment on this YouTube video. We're going to take some folks from our CFF preview shows who comment. We're going to add in some patrons, of course, into that mix as well for eligibility. And we're going to have a really fun seasonal league. So if you want to be able to get in on the weekly action with me and John, it's completely free and it will have a $100 payout. Again, no pay in, just payout for getting in and being a part of the rookie big board community. All right, John, let's go ahead here and jump into number 18. We're going to head to Pitt here, and we're going to talk about the running back Rodney Hammond.
Rodney Hammond, if you didn't know, he was the starter for the Panthers last year, the first game of the season. He had 27 fantasy points, Matt. He scored 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he got hurt in that game. And then if you know the story, Israel Abandakanda took over the backfield, and basically he was the guy. Hammond didn't come back until October 22nd. And by that time, he wasn't getting very many touches. His game logs, Matt, there are 2 big games. Against Syracuse, he had 28 carries for 124 yards, and he scored 19.5 points. Against UCLA in the bowl game, 25 carries, 89 points, 2 touchdowns. Rodney Hammond is in a great position to be a fantasy star. Most people don't realize it because Abandakanda, the current Jet, was so good last year, but you can get him at a very fair value. He is a terrific runner who might get 1,200 yards for Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah, it's certainly a system that's friendly to the running back here, and I don't see any reason for that to change this upcoming year. John, the Notre Dame offense is going to have to be friendly to the running back, because I'm not sure how friendly it's going to be to the quarterback this year. They're going to be relying on Audric Estime a lot, and that's going to bring him in here at number 17 in our rankings.
I was very slow to rising Estime up this far in the rankings. I probably started at like number 28, 30, somewheres around there. But then a couple guys left Notre Dame. Their quarterbacks kind of disappeared. They don't have the strength at the quarterback position. Michael Mayer is no longer with the program, Matt. And when I'm looking around at the roster, Estime just stands out as the guy. He's 5'11", 227. And I know when we get into the scouting reports, I think he's going to go pro. There's going to be people who don't like him because he doesn't necessarily have the quickest feet or the wiggle. But there is a role for power backs in the NFL. And Esteme's a power back, Matt, and he runs over some people. And if you look in the games in which Notre Dame lost last year, they didn't give him touches. In the games in which they won, Matt, Estime earned double-digit touches, over 15. If the Fighting Irish want to win football games, Matt, they got to put the ball in his hands. He'll help you win CFF. Estime is the real deal.
Now, John, I remember last offseason, we were 2 of the folks drafting this next guy the earliest, and there's no reason that we're going to back off of him now. Coming in at number 16 is Penn State's Nick Singleton.
I'm all in on Nick Singleton. Loved him last year. Still like him. However, I will just give one little small warning. People are drafting him so high, and we have him, 16, right? We have him at number 16 because he shares the backfield with Katron Allen. His ceiling is limited. He could have 1,200 yards, and last year he had a very good season. He had over 1,000 yards. He was explosive. He showed us everything that we saw on his high school tape, right, Matt? I mean, home runs, average 6.8 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns. But Katron Allen is a good running back, Matt. Plus, they have a young quarterback who they like a lot in Drew Alar. They're going to throw the football. So the only reason I wanted to put him in the top 12, Matt, even top 10. But when I look at it, they're going to share duties. What is he going to get? 55%, 60%? So that's why I have him at number 16. I think he's going to be fine, but I do think you're limited ceiling with him.
John, we love Maction, and the Maction loves to run the ball. Coming in at number 15 is Ball State's Marquez Cooper.
Marquez Cooper, if you don't watch enough action, everybody, you're missing out. He was unbelievable last year, right, in the MAC. But my friends, he played at Kent State. 2 years, Matt, he had 1,300 and 1,200 yards rushing and 24 touchdowns. Ball State loses Carson Steele, who goes to UCLA. Marquez Cooper moved over to Ball State to take that backfield. I see no reason he doesn't duplicate his success for the Cardinals. He's in a rock star position. The only thing that keeps him from being higher up in the rankings, he's not a big pass catcher, Matt. Only 18 in the past 2 seasons. He's a running back. They love to give him the ball on the ground, but he's an awesome player.
All right, John, let's head out west. Playing behind one of the perennial best offensive line units in the country, it's running back Jaquindon Jackson playing for the University of Utah.
This is all about system and scheme, Matt. We have a coach in Winningham, and we know what Kyle Winningham is going to do. They're going to run the football. Look at these studs I've had from the Utes. Tavian Thomas, Zach Moss, Joe Williams, Devontae Booker, all rushed for over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Jackson was a quarterback in high school. He's an uber athlete, and he's a very big man, 226 pounds in the Pac-12. We have talked about the Pac-12 last week in the quarterback show, and we alluded to it earlier. They're one of the teams that want to play in a phone booth. They're very different than those passing teams, those high-flying offenses. Utah wins by controlling the clock and punching people in the face. Jackson's going to be the guy delivering blows for the Utes this year.
John, coming in at number 13 is the running back out of the Ohio State University. It is Travion Henderson, super talented, John, and it's an offense that absolutely allows production from a lead running back as well as complementary running backs.
Matt, you are getting a value, in my opinion. His current ADP is 44, which means he's going off in the middle of the 4th round. He was a top 3 player last year. There were 3 Ohio State Buckeyes going in the top 3 pick, basically in the top 5 picks last year. Henderson slipped down the boards because he got injured. And I don't think people are giving this young man enough credit. He definitely was not himself, because if you put on tape of his freshman year and then you go watch tape of his sophomore year, they're not the same player. He definitely got hurt. Now, Ohio State has Marion Williams, who showed us a lot with the football last year. So maybe his ceiling's a little bit capped. But I think Henderson's going to get the majority of touches. Man, he's so good. I mean, he was at the top of the Debbie boards 2 years ago. I think I still have him in my top 2 or 3. I forget exactly, but he's still an amazing running back. And I wonder if this Buckeyes, if Kyle McCorder, we talked about last week, and I like, but if you want to protect a young quarterback early, what do, Matt? You give the ball to your backs. Let your offensive line handle it. Let the quarterback get into the offense, get into quarterbacking, right? Leading the team. I think Henderson's a smash in the 4th round, and I would not mind taking him in the 3rd round.
All right, let's go ahead and recap that last group of running backs. Coming in at number 18 is Rodney Hammond out of Pitt. Number 17, Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. 16 is Nick Singleton for Penn State. Number 15, Marquez Cooper out of Ball State. Utah running back Jaquindon Jackson comes in at number 14, and rounding out the group at number 13 here is Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Before we jump into the top 12, want to remind folks that they could get more rookie big board action by heading on over to patreon.com/rookie big board. You get access to our Devy rankings, dynasty rankings, and honestly, most valuable, you get to jump into that full access rookie big board Discord, chop it up, ask CFF questions, get some personalized insight, get help on your dynasty rosters, in season waiver wires, anything you need. We're here to help you out over at patreon.com/rookie big board. Now, John, we're getting into the top 12 running backs. Things are starting to get really juicy, really exciting. And I got to tell you, I always get excited when I see that Southern Miss is on TV because I get to see a little Frank Gore Jr. He comes in number 12 in the
And
rankings.
yes, everyone, that junior refers to his dad, one of the great players in NFL history. And I find value in Frank Gore. I mean, he's going off basically in the third round, so you do have to spend some draft capital on him. But Matt, he's not as big as his dad. There's no, like, he's just not the size of his dad. That's why he probably was a little not as highly recruited as his father. But man, he's got good feet. He's got speed. And if you've been watching him, and you probably noticed this, Matt, he's actually played quarterback. Last year, in 2021, they were so
Yeah,
decimated at Southern Mississippi. He ended up playing some quarterback. He's a very,
like a wildcat.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a very good athlete. He's a smart football player. Now, I don't know if he'll complete an option pass this year or not. I mean, but he is the Southern Mississippi offense. We love volume. You're looking for volume. You're looking at a G5 running back who is the center of the offense. He had 1,380 rushing last year and 9 touchdowns. All in on Frank Gore.
All right, coming in at number 11, it's back to action. It's Say Bangora, the running back for the University of Ohio.
Absolutely love Say Bangora. He's another, if you're not a diehard college football fan, you might not know how good of a running back this young man is. He had 1,078 yards and he scored 13 touchdowns for the Bobcats. He's a 3-down back, Matt. This is what I like the best: 27 receptions, 226 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was third team All MAC. He is a big player. He's a physical player. He should have no problem gaining another 1,000 yards, might even have a ceiling of 1,400 yards. He's awesome, and he's well worth a third-round pick.
The best running back that nobody talked about last year feels like Damian Martinez, the running back out of Oregon State. Johnny's back with a good offensive line. And you know what helps him? TJU is his quarterback. That definitely helped Will Shipley's production last year.
I seem to be I just love getting Damian Martinez. Matt, all 5 starters on the offensive line are returning. And we can say whatever we want about DJU, but I'll say this. Oregon State was so bad last year at the quarterback position. DJU, may I say it, is an improvement. I mean, that's just how bad Oregon State was. Damian Martinez looks the part of an NFL back, Matt. 4-star prospect, 6 foot, 215 pounds. I hate to use, he doesn't play like Steven Jackson, but I do remember Steven Jackson in that Beavers uniform, went on to be a star for the Rams. He's physical. He's good between the tackles. And Matt, the Beavers are going to pound you. They're a little bit like Utah. Utah's been doing it for a longer period of time. But the Beavers are going to run the ball with Martinez, and I just don't think there's a lot of Pac-12 defenses who can slow him down. I've got a lot of shares of Damian Martinez.
John, speaking of running behind good offensive lines, we talked about his backfield mate earlier. Coming in at number 9 is Blake Corum out of
There's
Michigan.
not much to say because you know what you're getting when you get a Michigan running back. He was in the Heisman conversation until he got hurt. I mean, he had 1,463 yards and 18 touchdowns. He was as good as any back in college football last year. Unfortunately, he did get hurt, and that gave us the opportunity to see Donovan Edwards and how good he is. But I just see Michigan's not going to change much. They've won with this running game. They lost some linemen, but they brought in 2 transfers. So all reports indicate this is a very strong offensive line once again. Corum's going to get 15 to 20 catches minimum every game, and he's their goal line guy. Love Blake Corum.
Now, John, I'm not going to blame any of our viewers here if they haven't caught any University of South Alabama action. But if for some reason you can find the Jaguars on your TV, you're going to want to pay attention to the running back here, LaDamian Webb.
I like LaDamian Webb, and this is a type of player from the G5. He I think he went to Florida State. I'm sorry if my memory forget, but he went to an ACC school, I'm pretty sure. He ended up going down. He ended up at the JUCO level. Then he ends up coming back up to the G5 level. Last year, Matt, he had 210 carries, but he surpassed the 1,000-yard mark. But more importantly, he had 21 receptions for 213 yards. If you've not seen the Jaguars, and Matt's have not been able to see the Jaguars, Matt, he's a good back, and this offense is fun with Carter Bradley pulling the trigger. They put points on the board. I like Webb. He can be he's a great number 2. If you go wide receiver heavy, you could use him as your first back if you need to.
All right, number 7 here is Trey Benson, the running back out of Florida State. Benson, a transfer from Oregon, came in with less touches last year, was very efficient. High expectations here for the Florida State offense this season, and that is centered around Benson at the running back position.
I think forget about the players and the pros. If you're looking from a Devy aspect, I think he's the biggest riser last year to this year is Trey Benson. He was really impressive. 6 feet tall, 6'1", 221 pounds. And Matt, he does pack a punch. I'm also a big believer in Coach Mike Norvell. And they put so many running backs in the NFL when he was at Memphis. I think Trey Benson's the next guy Norvell's going to get that NFL draft card. He's probably better than all of Tony Pollard, Darrell Henderson, and Antonio Gibson. He's better, I think, in my mind, and I think the NFL is going to like him better. He had 990 yards rushing last year. He also caught 13 passes. I think Florida State's very good. We got to see that opening game against LSU. Then they only have Clemson. You take out LSU and Clemson, and that Florida State schedule isn't that hard, Matt. I think he's good for almost 1,200 yards guaranteed.
All right, let's go ahead and hit another recap here. At 12 in the rankings is Frank Gore Jr. out of Southern Miss. 11, Saban Gora, Ohio. 10, Damian Martinez out of Oregon State. 9, Blake Corum out of Michigan. 8, LaDamian Webb out of the University of Southern Alabama. 7, Trey Benson out of Florida State. And John, before we jump into the top 6 here, want to make sure all of our viewers know the Rookie Big Board is now paired up with Underdog. Using that promo code RBB is going to give you a 100% deposit match. Literally no better way to get in on some fantasy contests. I am drafting nonstop. We have some bonus cash games going on for the Rookie Big Board patrons going on right now on Underdog. Lots of good stuff. You want to get in on the action and plenty of in-season content as well. All right, John, let's go ahead and jump into the top 6 here, starting with somebody who I have been excited to watch for a while. I'm expecting an even better season this year on the ground and dangerous through the air. Coming in at number 6 is Will Shipley out of Clemson.
I'm definitely higher on Will Shipley than most CFF rankers. I just see a really nice player, and I see potential for growth. And I think one of the things that happened is we judge running backs, and sometimes I don't think we give enough credence to the offensive line. I'm going to be kind. Clemson's offensive line was awful last year. I mean, they were bad, Matt. So some of this kind of watching Will Shipley has been difficult because it's hard to separate the player from the line because you're not getting maybe these excellent runs that you're used to. I still think the athleticism is there. Watch him from his freshman year. He is a very good pass catcher. I'm not going to put him in elite status, but he is really good. They have a young quarterback in Cade Klubnik. I think they're going to use Will Shipley in the passing game, use him in the first half on the ground, bring in Maffa to close the game. I think Will Shipley's guaranteed to have like 270 touches between rushing and receiving. I'll take that every day, Matt.
All right, John, it's time to hit the viewers with a little meat because we're heading to UTSA. We're talking about the Roadrunners here and their lead running back, Kavorian Barnes.
Kavorian Barnes, if you haven't watched the Roadrunners like I have, you have missed out. This young man is good. He is 5'9", 215 pounds. He's only a sophomore. He impressed me on a Thursday night game. I forgot who it was against, but it was, I love those Thursday night games and you just turn on the TV. You're like, hey, I got a Roadrunners game on. And I'm watching Barnes and he had over 100 yards rushing. He slowly took over the backfield duties by the end of the year. He's now in the American Athletic Conference, and that conference is a lot different than it's been over the last 6 years. There's some defenses that they're going to be easily able to run on. Barnes is one of those studs who people don't realize how good he is.
Yeah, dude, I gotta tell you, there is no offense, and this sounds like such a weird sentence to say, but there is no offense that I am more excited to see unfold this season than the Wisconsin Badgers. So coming in at number 4 here is Braylon Allen, and John, the reason I say that is because they've been a traditional run-first offense. Braylon Allen has put up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in his first 2 years, but now they have a new offensive coordinator, new head coach. Tanner Mordecai is at the helm, and it's a quasi-air raid system now.
Matt, it's going to be fun to watch the Badgers for many different reasons. You were referring to head coach Luke Fickell, who comes over from Cincinnati, and he brought with him Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator from North Carolina, who's got a year coaching record and has been very successful with his offenses. And you mentioned something, the most important thing. They are going to have a quasi-air raid. I do think Longo is such a good coach. He's going to understand that he doesn't have necessarily all the athletes that he would like he did at North Carolina. But he has a good quarterback in Tanner Mordecai, who played the last 2 years at SMU, and he's got a stud at running back. Matt, that is enough for him to tweak the offense. Just, tweak it on the edges. I think Braylon Allen's going to be more involved in the receiving game. I mean, we know Wisconsin runs the football from Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon, Corey Clement, James White. They're going to throw the ball a little bit to Allen, and I think they're going to try to make Allen a higher draft prospect, so he needs some receptions on film, but he's my number 4. Go get Braylon Allen. I don't care about the changes. He's too good of a player not to give him the football.
And too good of a player to leave out of the top 3, John. That's going to be Rasheen Ali, the running back out of Marshall.
We all were in last year. I think he might have been the number 2 running back off the board. Clear number 1 draft pick last year. Unfortunately, college football is hard to get reports. The summer there were reports that Ali wasn't practicing, but the coaching staff kind of told us he'd be fine. Well, Matt, unfortunately, he wasn't fine. He didn't play until the final 3 games of the season, but he did have 47 carries for 273 yards and a touchdown. So we did see some production out of the young man, and he was healthy. But we have to go back. His freshman year, he led them tied for the lead in rushing touchdowns with 23, Matt, and 1,401 yards. Marshall is going to run the football. He's a top 3 pick, first-round value.
All right, John, coming in at number 2 here is Raheem Rocket Sanders. He's at the top of a lot of draft boards at the running back position, certainly has the eye of a lot of folks in Devy, and you're going to be able to catch plenty of Razorbacks football here, and when you do, you're going to see him shredding up SEC defenses.
Matt, 6'2", 237 pounds, and he runs hard in between the tackles. I absolutely...
In a cut 237, all right? That's not dead weight.
There's no dead weight on that guy. I mean, he is all... I loved your Devy profile. If you go to Rookie Big Board, check it out. Matt breaks him down incredibly well. Matt, he's a productive college fantasy football running back. He's at the top of the draft boards, number 1 or 2 everywhere. And Arkansas averaged 236 yards per game, seventh most productive rushing offense in the nation. I expect another huge year from Rocket Sanders.
And speaking of huge years, staying in the SEC, staying in the SEC West, John, he surprised us last year, but not again. Number one in our CFF running back rankings is Old Miss running back Quishon Junkins.
I think he might have been the biggest surprise, best waiver wire gemstone of the year last year. We all thought Zach Evans was going to be the guy who's now a rookie with the Los Angeles Rams. But Quinshon Junkins just came in and took the job from him. And he was simply incredible with 1,567 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns, Matt. As a true freshman, he was first team all SEC. Why I like him even more. Lane Kiffin has coached Derrick Henry to the Heisman. Harris surpassed 1,000 yards at Alabama under Kiffin. And then he had Devin Singletary. And whatever you think of him as an NFL prospect, he's from Florida Atlantic. And he had a 1,900-yard rushing campaign, and he was an NFL draft pick. Quinshon Junkins is a great running back in a system that highlights the runners.
All right, John, there you have it. Our top 24 CFF running backs. Before we wrap up this episode here, we want to make a point here to talk about, in relation to the CFF Kings Classic, our expert draft we do with folks CFF around the country here. You really, John, coordinate a fundraiser here for St. Jude's. I got to say, I was putting the link in the episode description for last week, going to be putting it in this week as well. But when I was putting it in, John, I noticed the donations were already flowing in to support this fundraiser here. So why don't you talk about it a little bit more this week, and hopefully those donations continue to flow in after this episode.
Yeah, thank you everyone who's made a donation. We're doing really well. The donations are up until after the CFF Kings Classic, and that is on August 12th. So if you like anything that Matt and I do, and all our videos are free, and all of my written content is free on Fantrax, I would love it if you just made a donation to these children. It's not about me. It's not about what we do here. It's really about helping these kids at St. Jude's and their family. At the end, after the Kings Classic, I tally all of it, and all the proceeds go to St. Jude's, and I post it back up on Twitter so everyone knows that the donation was made. And it's just a great thing for children and their families.
Absolutely fantastic. John, if you want more videos, more breakdowns like this, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard.